These are dark times, there is no denying. Our world has perhaps faced no greater threat than it does today. But I say this to our citizenry. We, ever your servants, will continue to defend your liberty and repel the forces that seek to take it from you.
You're listening to The Stephen Tauriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Stephen Tauriello Show. And now, here's Stephen.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. So, top Biden spokesperson John Kirby believes that climate change is a bigger threat than nuclear war. So, top Biden spokesperson John Kirby appeared on Fox News on Monday as Joe Biden hid like a coward. Biden called a lid before noon on Monday as Iran's proxy arm Hamas threatens to execute hostages, including Americans. Tensions are also escalating on the Lebanon border. Hezbollah terrorists are exchanging gunfire with Israel Defense Forces. The world is inching toward nuclear war, and the Biden regime is obsessing over non-existent climate change. Joe Biden's spokes claimed climate change is the biggest threat to humanity. And here is John Kirby saying that right here.
I want to play this soundbite for you that is just last month in Vietnam and ask you if this still holds for the president. Watch.
The only existential threat humanity faces, even more frightening than a nuclear war, is global warming going above 1.5 degrees in the next 10 years.
Given all the nuclear players in these two areas where we are now engaged, John, does the president stand by that comment?
Absolutely he does. Climate change is an existential threat. It actually threatens and is capable of wiping out all human life on Earth over time. I mean, I don't know how more existential you can get to that, but that doesn't mean that we walk away from our obligations, our national security interests in very dangerous parts of the world.
John,
You mentioned
he said it was more frightening than a nuclear war. Is that it's more frightening than a nuclear war in this moment?
The president believes wholeheartedly that climate change is an existential threat to all of human life on the planet. That's just science. That's fact, Martha. But it doesn't mean that we turn our back on the other challenges facing this country and our allies and partners around the world.
My. So if you guys want to know why everything is so awful right now in this country, it's because these people prioritize some of the dumbest stuff. I don't think Kirby believes it, and I don't even think Joe Biden believes it. Nobody can sit there and tell me that Joe Biden actually cares about climate change. The guy probably doesn't even know what climate change is. Okay? This guy does not give a flying rip about climate change. Joe Biden is a chameleon. He is whatever he has to be, and that is exactly why he has managed to stay in politics for 50 years. The guy, he has no morals. He has no principles. He does not value principles so that he can change his principles whenever he has to. This is the same guy that sits there and talks about racism and white supremacy being an existential threat to this country when he teamed up with the segregationists. The guy is a real racist. Like, he says racist stuff. He does racist things. He voted for the 1994 crime bill, which wrongly incarcerated vast portions of the minority community. He sits there, he cracks down on cocaine back in the 90s, passes all these bills, the crime bills, so on and so forth. And then just a year and a half ago, gives free crack pipes to crackheads in California. That is a real thing that happened. Crack smoking kits, heroin kits. Like, this guy doesn't believe in anything. So for Joe Biden to go out there and say that climate change is some existential threat, a bigger threat than nuclear war, it can't be taken seriously. He can't be taken seriously. Kirby can't be taken seriously. But don't underestimate the rest of the people. The people on the leftist Democrats, they are very serious about climate change. These people worship climate change. Climate change is their religion. These people worship Mother Earth like we worship God and Jesus and the Bible. Like these people, it is no doubt a religion to these people. And they are 100% committed to that religion. And so, granted, Kirby may not believe it. Joe Biden certainly doesn't believe it. But they will prioritize climate change over nuclear threats because that's what gets them votes. And like I said, Joe Biden is whatever he has to be in order to get votes. So at least 9 Americans have been killed in the ambush terror attack, and many have been taken hostage. Remember what we said on the last episode about the Biden administration paying billions of dollars to Iran for hostages? Well, to the Tehran for hostages. What's going to happen? It's going to incentivize these psychopaths to take more hostages so that they can get more money. This is why you do not negotiate with terrorists. That is it. Because these people, they are evil. They are savages. You do not negotiate with them. But then again, the Biden administration does everything backwards. It is April Fool's Day every day in the Biden administration. So Hamas militants launched a surprise attack on Israel, catching the country off guard during a major Jewish holiday. The attack involved thousands of rockets and dozens of fighters infiltrating Israeli towns near the Gaza Strip. Horrifying footage has emerged showing women being marched into vehicles, bloodied and bruised. Earlier reports showed Israeli civilians, including children, being captured and taken into Gaza Strip. The death toll from Saturday's Hamas terror attack rose to over 900 dead, at least 2,500 plus were injured. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said a war was forced on to him. Israel retaliated, cut off electricity, water, fuel, and food to Gaza. This is an all-out, full-blown kinetic war happening in Israel right now with the Tehran. It's all essentially ISIS, okay? And I have to say, I've been reading into the Middle East conflicts all day. All day, I've been reading into the history, the conflicts, both sides, Palestinian and Israeli. They're going all the way back to the biblical times. It is extremely complex. The situations over there, the conflicts, the ethnicity, the religion, it is so complex, it's mind-blowing. And so, naturally, you're going to have Democrats picking the opposite side of Donald Trump, because that's all these people think about. And I'm not joking either. This is all these people think about. Whatever Donald Trump does, they do the opposite. Donald Trump wants secure borders. They want open borders. Donald Trump was accused of being a Russia puppet, so these people support Ukraine. This is what the Democrats do. This is all they do. All they do is the opposite of Donald Trump, the opposite of Republicans. They have no, again, just like Biden, they have no principles. They have no morals. Their morals and principles are malleable so that they can change them whenever they need to. So, listen, it is completely terrifying that we have an administration that prioritizes climate change over nuclear war. And you could see that based off what we've been seeing for the last few days. Like I said, I've been getting into a lot of the Middle East conflicts, the history, the everything. Like I said, it is an extremely complex situation. Anybody that says they know the whole story, they're lying. All right? They're the only, you have, Israeli historians, Jewish historians, Palestinian historians, even they say it's complex. Even they don't have the answers. Even they don't really pick sides. They've been in conflict for literally thousands of years. There has been blood spilt in the Middle East for thousands of years over religion, ethnicity, everything. Borders, mostly borders. All I know is I think it's absolutely just crazy how people are killing one another in a war in 2023. That to me has always bugged me. It bugs me with Russia, Ukraine. What bugs me the most is just the waste of life. People dying. Life is so precious. We have like a 1 in 40 trillion chance of being here. And we got to kill each other over land, over ethnicity, over race. It's just, it's probably the thing that bugs me the most. It's just the complete waste of life, man. So I wanted to start out with the Israeli war thing real quick, because we're going to keep up with it on this show, but I'll be honest, it's so complex. Like we'll keep up with the big breaking stories. All I can tell you is that social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, they have to be in 100% freak out mode right now with all the videos flowing in from the absolute carnage that's happening over there in the Middle East with this war. I mean, I'm talking just the videos that I've seen. I mean, their videos are popping up faster than they can remove them. And I'm not talking about videos of, people getting kidnapped. That's bad enough. But I'm talking about people getting their heads chopped off on camera and them sending it and posting it on social media. Straight to Facebook, straight to Twitter. It is 100% absolute carnage, savagery happening over there. These people are not... You have a guy that they call the Butcher walking around with a giant sword chopping people's heads off. This is the type of stuff that is happening over there. And then these people want to talk about climate change being an existential threat. You cannot take these people seriously, man. You can't. If you've seen some of the videos, and I'm sure you have, if you've seen some of the videos, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Those are third world problems. Okay, climate change, I'm sorry, is not on those people's priority list. I'm just going to go out and say it. The only people that care, the only people that say climate change is an existential threat are rich people. Poor people are not talking about climate change. Poor people aren't talking about windmills and solar panels. They don't care. They don't have that type of luxury. It's the rich, powerful elite that are making your lives harder because of their agenda, because of their ideology. And if you need any more proof that these people prioritize climate change over everything else, I just played you an audio clip where Joe Biden is doing a speech and says that climate change is more threatening than nuclear war. So that is really all you need to hear. And so even though Joe Biden doesn't believe it, Kirby doesn't believe it, this is how these people, this is what they see as their most powerful move of getting votes, winning the election. Like I said this from the very beginning. Everything these people do is about getting votes. Everything is about getting reelected. That is it. It is whatever they have to do to retain power and gain more power. That is it. And so if Joe Biden has to go out there and tell the entire world and tell the American people, yeah, the beatings will continue until morale improves, we are going to continue prioritizing climate change over nuclear war, they are going to continue with the climate change agenda, and things are going to get harder, and this society is on the brink of collapse because of these people's disastrous ideas, very dangerous ideas. But there is a little hope. There's a little hope. So Robert F. Kennedy has officially announced that he's running as an independent. Now, I want to express to people that the issues we are experiencing right now are not issues that can be solved with just a president. It goes much, much deeper than that. We are in a multi-front war, and one of those fronts is the spiritual battle. We are in a spiritual battle right now. There's not a doubt in my mind. The more religion is removed from society, the worse things get. You have less and less people going to church every single day. You have less and less people believing in faith, God, religion every single day. And I'm not saying My God. I'm not saying God. I'm not talking about Christianity. I'm not talking about Catholicism. Religion as a whole is being removed from our society, from our civilization. And every single ancient civilization in the past all collapsed when they stopped following their foundational principles and religions. It's as simple as that. We did a whole show on this. Between the Mongols, the Chinese dynasty, all the way up to the Egyptians, the Mayans, all of them. All the major ancient civilizations all collapsed when their founding faith, religion, and their founding principles and morals were all degraded to nothing. And so you have to ask yourself the question, like, are we watching the beginning of the collapse of America? I know everybody's thinking it. I know you're thinking it. I know you've thought about it. It's unfortunate that we've reached a stage to where you can say that, and it's actually a possibility. I know it certainly is to me. I mean, it's what it looks like to me anyways. I feel it in my bones. I don't know exactly what it is, but I feel it. We are either on the brink of a major great war, like World War III, which would be absolute devastation between nuclear weapons, bioweapons, or we are on the verge of mass collapse in multiple civilizations. Because it's not just here that these problems are happening. There are similar things happening all across the globe. There's so many different countries going through what we're going through right now. But like I said, it's not going to be up to just one guy, one president for 4 years. There is no way a president, I don't care who it is, there is no way anybody's going to be able to fix what we are experiencing right now. It goes much, much deeper in this war on society that we're witnessing. So I got an article here, a hat tip to Anthony Scott. Presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy held a campaign event in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and has officially announced he's now running as an independent. Kennedy told a huge crowd of supporters in Philly, "I'm here today to declare myself an independent candidate for President of the United States." And here's that audio right here. Check it out.
I'm here to declare myself an independent candidate. An independent candidate for President of the United States. That's not all. I'm here to join you in making a new Declaration of Independence for our entire nation. We declare independence from the corporations that have hijacked our government.
He's speaking what the people want, man. This guy, I said that, I really hate boasting on myself. It's totally not me. That may be some other podcasters, radio host, but I said this a long time ago. The day RFK Jr. announced he was running as president, or was even hinting at running for president, I said he's going to be an issue that Republicans need to watch out for him. And here he is. He is here, and a lot of people like him. Myself included. I like RFK Jr. I do. I don't agree with I don't agree with probably a lot of his policies. I don't agree with a lot of where he stands on certain issues. And that's okay, man. That's okay. Nobody is out there trying to find the guy that they trust me. If there's somebody out there you agree with them on everything, then there's something wrong. But RFK Jr. is a very unique person to me because he's a Democrat just like myself that was left politically homeless. Literally. He ran as a Democrat. The DNC rigged the primaries against him, so essentially it was impossible for him to run against Joe Biden. They did that on purpose. And so they left him. They left RFK Jr. behind. And it's not just that, but the radical leftists in the Democrat Party, they hate him. They hate this man because of the vaccines. They hate him for lots of different reasons, even though he aligns with a lot of what they value, with a lot of their ideas, as far as the climate change stuff, as far as anti-nuclear energy, abortion rights, just go down the list. So this is a big issue for Republicans because he's going to get a lot of Republicans to vote for him, not me. I made a deal with myself 2-3 years ago. I will never, ever vote for a Democrat again in my life. Never. There has to be the sky would have to be falling in order for me to vote for a Democrat. But I don't know, man. I was a Democrat. I turned Republican. It just depends. I really don't like the two-party system at all. I think it's an awful system. I really do. But I'm just going to tell you, a lot of people love this guy. He has a lot of support. I mean, you see the crowd. The crowd, this reminds me of a Donald Trump crowd. It really does. And so all throughout Kennedy's speech, he advocated for Americans to come together in unity to defeat the corrupt elite who have occupied the United States. At one point, Kennedy shared he was being inspired by one other president with no political party, and that was George Washington. Kennedy shared, in his farewell address, Washington issued a warning about the disastrous potential of party politics. Inevitably, he said, political parties will be taken over by a cunning, ambitious, unprincipled minority who will serve their interests of the party instead of the interests of the nation. And shared, Washington's prediction has come true, and that, as president, he plans to hand back power to the American people. This is very, very interesting, folks. We now have two candidates that are talking about the real concerns that the people have. And one of the biggest concerns people have is this government and the elite capture by corporations of our government. The bureaucracy, the weaponized intel agencies, the lobbyists, the donors. He is saying everything that people are feeling right now, and that was one of the strong points with Donald Trump. This guy knows how to read a crowd. He understands the people. He knows what the people want. And he knows how to deliver. We have proof of 4 years. We have Donald Trump. We have 4 years of Donald Trump's administration to prove that Donald Trump was a successful president. His ideas were successful. And that if there is a president that just upholds and implements what the people want, you will have a successful administration. And right now, what the people want is smaller government. They want, and I'm not talking about just me and conservatives, I'm talking as a whole. As a whole, most Americans don't trust our elections. Over 70% of Americans in this country think the country's going in the wrong direction. And so RFK Jr. is saying a lot of stuff people want to hear. Think about it. Our government has been the one for decades putting this country into a state of decline. All the problems we have now are not created by the people. It's not even created by corporations, really. It is the corporations commingling with government. It is the elite capture of our government is what's hurting this country. But why should the American people have to put up with it? Like, why should the American people have to put up with a government that is destroying their country and they're paying for it? All these people are rich. They're extremely powerful, wealthy, connections to the elite. I mean, they are essentially riding on the backs of the American people and grabbing as much stuff as they can on the way out. They're always getting us into wars and conflict. Always. The American people are not going to war. The American people don't declare war. And I guarantee you, if this government were to give the American people a seat at the table, a seat at the Situation Room, when it comes to declaring war or proxy wars or conflict on other countries, 99% of the time, the American people are going to say no. But that's not what our government does. Our government always thinks they know what's best for the people. Always. And that was never the intention of the government. The government, the founders essentially wanted a government there to uphold the laws and balance the checkbook. That is it. To amend the Constitution when needed, but that's really it. They didn't want a giant, massive government like this that employs millions and millions of people. This thing is growing wildly. It is the only thing that's been consistently growing for the last 60 years. Government, the bureaucracy, the swamp. And RFK and Donald Trump are both talking about dismantling it and giving this country back to the American people. You just heard it in RFK's speech. And people are just sick and tired of it, man. People are sick and tired of this government spending us into oblivion on the most dumbest stuff. The stuff that this government spends our money on is some of the dumbest stuff you have ever heard in your entire life. And I think we went through them on a past show. I mean, I'm talking about the migration cycles of wild salmon where they give, $65 million for the polar bear migration or something stupid, like some of the most ridiculous, stupid stuff. And now our government has got us involved in so many different conflicts around the world, in so many different areas. We are essentially holding up entire countries. Ukraine, most notably. We are paying the pensions and retirement plans and insurance plans for the Ukrainian government. We are holding up the Ukrainian government. Me, you, the taxpayer. We are funding the Ukrainian government. We're funding their police, their firefighters, their dog trainers, their divers, their police divers. We are. Here's a piece of audio clip from 60 Minutes that I want you to hear. I actually had this a few days ago, but I think it's important that you hear it. Here, check this out.
American taxpayers are financing more than just weapons. We discovered the US government's buying seeds and fertilizer for Ukrainian farmers and covering the salaries of Ukraine's first responders, all 57,000 of them. That includes the team that trains this rescue dog, named Joy, to comb through the wreckage of Russian strikes looking for survivors. And the US also funds the divers, who we saw clearing unexploded ammunition from the country's rivers to make them safe again for swimming and fishing. Russia's invasion shrank Ukraine's economy by about a third. We were surprised to find that to keep it afloat, the US government is subsidizing small businesses.
Where would the Ukrainians be right now without US weapons? How much of their country would they have lost?
Without that sort of aid, I think Ukraine would have been probably overrun, defeated, certainly would have lost a lot more.
Lieutenant General Ben Hodges served as the commander of the US Army in Europe. He retired in 2017 and is now an advisor to NATO. Hodges told us the Biden administration has failed to explain to Americans what they're getting for their dollar in Ukraine.
If you think about it, Russia has been for decades and still is an existential threat for Europe and the United States. I mean, just listen to what their leaders say. Look at the thousands of nuclear weapons. They clearly will keep going if they're not stopped.
It sounds like you're saying stopping Vladimir Putin in Ukraine directly benefits every American.
Absolutely. This war is about so much more than just Ukraine.
Is this a high point for American foreign policy?
It will be after Russia has been defeated.
Ladies and gentlemen, these people are lying to you. They have the American people convinced that all the money and aid is to fund, beans and bullets. It's not. We are literally funding and subsidizing an entire country, including their government. So not only are we paying for our crooked establishment, but now we're funding another country's crooked establishment. And the best audio that I could find that explains exactly what is happening in Ukraine and Russia is John Kirby, again, being questioned by a reporter that knows his stuff. And it is the only audio that I have heard that actually makes sense about what's really going on with the Russia-Ukraine war. So I'm going to go ahead and play it and pay attention because there's some good nuggets in this audio here. Here, check this out.
The Russian army is at NATO's doorstep is because NATO has expanded rather than the Russians expanding? That, in other words, NATO has moved closer to Russia rather than Russia moving closer to NATO? Is that not an accurate way to look at this?
I think that's the way President Putin probably looks at it. It's certainly not the way that we look at it.
You don't think that NATO has expanded eastward toward Russia?
NATO has expanded,
okay.
and the expansion has been a good thing for...
So the reason that the Russian army is at NATO's doorstep is not the fault of the Russian army, it's not the Russian army that's done it. It's NATO has moved closer to move
I'm pretty
east.
sure it wasn't NATO who was ordering, upwards of 15 battalion tactical groups to within 10 kilometers of the border with Ukraine. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't NATO who put little green men inside Ukraine to destabilize eastern states.
I'm pretty sure that Ukraine is not a member of NATO. So unless that's changed,
it's not changed. But I'm pretty sure the movement by Russia is Russia's decision.
If NATO has moved east, the reason that the Russian army is closer or on NATO's doorstep is because NATO moved.
NATO is not an anti-Russia alliance. NATO is a security alliance.
For 50 years, it was an anti-Soviet alliance. So do you not understand it? So do you not understand how, or can you not even see how the Russians will perceive it as a threat? And the fact that it keeps getting closer to their border while their troops, I mean, the places where their troops are, you say their troops are, and may have been in Ukraine and Georgia, are not NATO members.
I'm not going to pretend to know what goes in President Putin's mind or Russian military commanders. I mean, I barely got a history degree at the University of South Florida. Right. What I can tell you is that NATO is a defensive alliance. It remains a defensive alliance.
Fair enough, but it has moved east, correct? I mean, that's just a fact.
It has expanded, absolutely.
Right, exactly.
But there's no reason for anybody to think the expansion is a hostile or threatening move. And we've been saying that throughout the last 15 years, Matt.
Like you're moving closer to Russia. You're blaming the Russians for being close to NATO.
No.
That's exactly what Hagel's
We're blaming the Russians for violating the territorial integrity of Ukraine and destabilizing the security situation
not a NATO
inside
member. Which is not a NATO.
I see
other countries feel threatened.
There you go. Did you hear it right at the end? Other countries feel threatened. That is why we are in Ukraine. Not because Russia was moving closer to NATO, not because Russia was moving closer to Ukraine, but because NATO was expanding, which means it was NATO moving closer to Russia, and this dude was like, whoa, wait a minute. I was told that I am not supposed to be moving closer to NATO, so why is NATO moving closer to me? And this is what you got. This is what you got. It is all a setup. I am not pro-Putin. I am not pro-Zelensky. I am anti-war. I don't like people dying. But to sit here and lie to the American people, and they wonder why the American people are waning on support for the funding of Ukraine, for the aid for Ukraine. It's stuff like this. It is exactly stuff like this. They are not being honest with the American people. And so when RFK Jr. and Donald Trump go out there on the stage and they sit there and they say, I want to dismantle this massive, rogue, bureaucratic swamp, the American people are cheering by the millions because the American people are not dumb. I say this all the time. The American people know exactly what the problem is. And the problem is a corrupt, crooked, bureaucratic swamp in our government. That's what's wrong with everything. That is why the American people are suffering. That is why people are dying in Ukraine. That is why people are dying right now in Israel. Our country is involved in all of this stuff. And not because to protect the American people, but to make these people more money and get them more power. It's all about these people. Exactly what RFK Jr. said. Exactly what Donald Trump says. The interest of the American people come last all the time. It's all one big giant scam. The war, what is happening in Ukraine, what is happening in Israel and Palestine, it's nothing that they tell you it is. Nothing. Everything they tell you is half-truth. But all of what they're doing is 100% corrupt. All of what they're doing is 100% benefiting them. That is it. And you notice how John Kirby could not defend it because he knows that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. And nobody finds it a little bit ironic that when support is waning of the American people for its support of Ukraine, that now all of a sudden, instead of sending billions of dollars to Ukraine, now we're sending billions of dollars to Israel? They were going to get their war one way or the other, folks. They're going to make their money one way or the other. This is the military-industrial complex and corporate elite capture of our government. All this destruction right now is all being done by the corporations, the bureaucratic swamp in Washington, D.C., and the military-industrial complex. These people are making millions off the back of the American taxpayer. And that is exactly why millions and millions of people are supporting Trump. That is exactly why millions of people are supporting RFK Jr., is because they are sick and tired of it. And these two are the only two people talking about dismantling this corrupt, crooked system. And there was another piece of audio that I have. I know a lot of audio today, right? Is because I took some time and because I can't possibly explain to you what's happening in the Middle East. It's just too complex. I'm going to continue researching it as always, but I found the Middle East conflicts and all their situation and all the details in the Middle East, I found it to be confusing anyways. My entire life, I always thought that the Middle East was just the conflicts and the violence and the blood spilling over there was always just a part of their culture, because it is. Violence and bloodshed has been a part of the Middle East culture for thousands of years, and it's extremely complex. So you're talking about border disputes and land disputes and ethnicity disputes that go back thousands of years. But I found a piece of audio from Ron Paul. Yes, Ron Paul. Years and years ago. I don't even know what date it is because there is no date, and I could not find a date for this audio. But Ron Paul explains exactly the cause of what we're watching happen in the Israel-Hamas attacks right now. Here, check this out.
The gentlewoman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Dr. Paul.
Madam Speaker, I rise in opposition to this resolution, not because I am taking sides and picking who the bad guys are and who the good guys are, but I'm looking at this more from the angle of being a United States citizen, an American. And I think resolutions like this really do us great harm. In many ways, what's happening in the Middle East, and in particular with Gaza right now, we have some moral responsibility for both sides in a way, because we provide help and funding for both Arab nations and so we definitely have a moral responsibility, and especially now today, the weapons being used to kill so many Palestinians are American weapons, and American funds essentially are being used for this. But there's a political liability which I think is something that we fail to look at, because too often there's so much blowback from our intervention in areas that we shouldn't be involved in. You know, Hamas, if you look at the history, you'll find out that Hamas was encouraged and really started by Israel, because they wanted Hamas to counteract Yasser Arafat. And you say, well, yeah, that was better then and served its purpose, but we didn't want Hamas to do this. So then we as Americans say, well, we have such a good system, we're going to impose this on the world. We're going to invade Iraq and teach people how to be Democrats. We want free elections. So we encourage the Palestinians to have a free election. They do, and they elect Hamas. So we first, indirectly and directly through Israel, help establish Hamas. Then we have election. Then Hamas becomes dominant, so we have to kill them. You know, it just doesn't make sense. During the 80s, you know, we were allied with Osama bin Laden. And we were contending with the Soviets. It was at that time our CIA thought it was good if we radicalized the Muslim world. So we financed the madrasa schools to radicalize the Muslims in order to compete with the Soviets. There's too much blowback. There's a lot of reasons why we should oppose this resolution. It is not in the interest of the United States. It's not in the interest of Israel either.
So even back then, and that video had to be from the 80s, our government, the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about, and the elite capture by the corporations of our government. They are the ones doing all this. They are the ones creating this disaster. And then we are the ones that have to flip the bill. We are ultimately the ones that have to pay the price. Whether it's through blood, whether it's through our most prized possession, our soldiers, money, whatever it is. But it's always this huge, ginormous, bloated, wasteful government that gets us involved in these things. And almost all the time, we are funding both sides. Almost all the time, it wouldn't even be a thing if it was not for the United States government and the military-industrial complex getting involved. You heard it right there. We are directly responsible for the creation of Hamas. We wanted to push our democracy over there. They voted, and they voted for Hamas, and then we're like, oh, wait, these people are bad. We got to take them out. And so now we found ourselves at war with Hamas. It's like we create these things where the United States is always trying to police the world, and as a result of that, we just create all these massive conflicts. Now, I'm not saying the United States is responsible for the Israeli and the Palestinian conflict. I'm not saying that. These people they've had beef with one another for thousands of years. I'm just saying our government does not help the situation. And the American taxpayer, your average American, they would not agree to any of this. I guarantee you, if you ask the American people, hey, we want to push democracy into the Middle East. Are you cool with that? It's going to cost billions or even trillions of dollars. The American people will say no. But these people aren't doing what the American people want. They aren't asking us. They're just doing what they do. All while making millions and millions of dollars, becoming very, very wealthy. And so I just found that audio to be almost exactly what is happening and how the United States is involved with the Middle East. And hopefully that audio from Ron Paul actually explained it. Because I think he did a lot better than me. I have no idea really what's going on over there, except for what I've been reading today. I did a brief history for about maybe 30 minutes, and you are about ready to see more carnage than you've probably ever seen in your life. Like I said earlier, the videos that are coming out of there are disgusting and straight savage, man. Savagery is happening over there. And now 9 Americans got killed. So now we got issues. And I think what's happening in New York City with the Palestinians throwing up swastikas on their phone, you guys probably seen the picture. These people are chanting, Free Palestine. Like, it is... And you have to wonder, like, how many terrorists were let in through our southern border? Out of the millions of people that Joe Biden's administration led into this country, how many are here? They like this carnage. They like this death. How many were let into this country? That is an answer we'll never know. But I'm telling you one thing right now, the Biden administration in the southern border is our biggest national security threat, hands down, right now. Even more than climate change. Yes. So I don't know how we got on. I don't know how we spent so much time on this. But I wanted to get back into RFK Jr. and Donald Trump. You guys know how I feel about a Trump-DeSantis ticket. All right? And I still do feel strongly about that ticket. But what do you guys think about an RFK Jr. and Trump ticket? That's very interesting. So I started looking into, has there ever been a president and vice president from different parties? And there was. It was called the Unity ticket in 1864. And Abraham Lincoln, a Republican, chose Andrew Johnson, a Democrat. So I just found it fitting how they called it a unity ticket back then. That's exactly what we need right now. I think somebody like RFK and Donald Trump, I think those two would be a pretty good match for one another, because you would have, it would be a superpower ticket. There's no doubt about it. And it would bring a ton of people on board, because Democrats would want to vote for RFK. You know, the sane, rational ones, not the radical leftists, but the sane, rational Democrats that like him now, they would want to vote for RFK because they know RFK as a vice president could run for president right after that and probably get elected. Most definitely, because they know Donald Trump's only got one term. So think about the duo, RFK Jr., Donald Trump, 4 years. You would have RFK Jr. out there he knows the system. He knows the game. He's been in this stuff literally his entire life. He was born into it. He's a Kennedy. His dad was running. His dad was in politics. His uncle was in politics. His uncle was JFK. So RFK Jr. knows a lot about government, policies. He knows a lot about all of this stuff. He knows a lot about the inner workings, and he hates the establishment. He hates the corporations that have taken over our government. And so think about that duo. Donald Trump, RFK Jr. on the same ticket would be a massive ticket. It would make people's heads explode. Certainly the Democrats, the leftist Democrats' heads, because these people already hate RFK running as an independent because it's going to pull a lot of votes off of Joe Biden. And so they're afraid that it's essentially giving Donald Trump the win. And it may be, because there's going to be a lot of Democrats. Listen, over 70% of Democrats do not want Joe Biden running again. And so if that's a big indicator of a lot of Democrats voting for RFK Jr. It really does. Or Donald Trump, one or the other, but 70% say they don't want Joe Biden. And so the left is pissed off because RFK Jr. is going to pull a bunch of votes off of Joe Biden. What if RFK Jr. ran with Donald Trump? And think of all those Republicans that are going to be joining in. I'm just saying, I think an RFK ticket and a Donald Trump ticket is a masterclass, and it would pull in a lot of votes. A lot of votes. Because they would know that RFK Jr. would kind of, I want to say, almost keep Donald Trump under his wing when it comes to the corrupt establishment, how these corporations captured our government. He probably knows exactly where the corruption is, and so does Donald Trump. And that's exactly why I say them two together would be a monster ticket. Monster ticket. So I don't know. Send me an email, StephenTaurielloShow@gmail.com. Let me know what you think. You think that's a good ticket? Do you think that a Ron DeSantis Trump ticket is still the best ticket we got? I don't know. I've been saying a Trump DeSantis ticket is going to decimate all. And I've been saying that for over probably a year now, because it will. And who knows, he may still pick DeSantis. I am still predicting he's going to pick DeSantis, but I'm starting to see, this is why they say it's too early to predict these things. But I'm starting to DeSantis kind of just disappeared off the map. He's still in second place under Trump, but at the minimum 45 points. I mean, it just doesn't have a chance. But I don't know. I could totally see a Trump DeSantis ticket, and it would be a powerhouse ticket. And then you would have RFK Jr. as an independent pulling votes from Democrats and Republicans. RFK Jr. is going to get the Republicans that don't want to vote for Trump. So that's why I said from the very beginning, RFK Jr., he's dangerous. He's a dangerous candidate for both parties. So you had the 1864 election with Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Johnson, and before that was the election of 1796. And in the election of 1796, John Adams was a Federalist, and he was elected as the second president of the United States, and his opponent, Thomas Jefferson, a Democratic Republican, became vice president because they had a different voting process than we do now. They didn't have the Electoral College. So essentially, whoever came in second place, whoever got the second most votes was vice president. And so you had a president and a vice president from different parties. And Thomas Jefferson was from the Democratic Republican Party. That's wild, right? The Democratic Republican Party. There's no doubt the two-party system is a massive failure. The two-party system is dead. It's gone. It does not need to be recovered. There's so many different things we can do, but we're not going to be able to do anything with our elections if we don't get somebody in there to change this stuff. The only way we have to secure our election. We have to secure our elections first. Have to. And the only way we're going to be able to secure our elections is if you get somebody in there first that is willing to secure the elections, which is already going to be hard because states handle their elections. The federal government doesn't have a whole lot of involvement in our presidential elections. They don't. They leave it up to the states because the founders really didn't plan on states being corrupt in their elections and having crooked elections. I don't know how they couldn't predict that happening, but there's a lot of things they didn't predict. So I don't know. So let me know what you think about an RFK Trump ticket. I think it would be an absolute powerhouse. I think that would be a winning ticket, just like a Trump DeSantis ticket. But I think I would actually enjoy seeing either one. I think Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump would make a awesome ticket, a awesome duo, and Donald Trump be able to pass the gauntlet on to DeSantis after 4 years. And I think a RFK Jr. and a Trump ticket would be a awesome duo. And again, can pass the gauntlet on to RFK Jr., and then he could take over for 8 years. I don't know what it is about RFK Jr. I don't agree with a lot of his stuff, but he just seems to be a little bit more sane, which is not very common for Democrats these days. This guy knows. This guy will say things like, yes, climate change, is real. It is a threat. However, we can't just ban fossil fuels. So, and I know that's the same thing Joe Biden said. He says we will not ban fracking. He ended up banning fracking. He said we will not be at war with the fossil fuel companies. He went to war with the fossil fuel companies. So Joe Biden, he knew how to play the game. He said everything the people wanted to hear, and then he did the complete opposite. And so RFK Jr., I don't think he is, because there was a lot riding on his name, the Kennedy family. And I've been saying this for a long time, that if JFK was alive today, he would be a conservative, he'd be a Republican, because the party has just moved that far to the left. JFK would at least be an independent today, just like what RFK Jr. is doing. And I truly do believe that RFK Jr. is a man of principle and integrity, and I think he's going to do everything he can to uphold his family's legacy. And that legacy is going to be a Democrat that actually cares about this country and puts the people first. And so, yes, his ideas, I don't agree everything. I don't agree on all of them. I don't agree on his climate change stuff. Listen, all we need is just a Democrat that's not insane, okay? Like Joe Biden would be okay if the guy didn't go completely bonkers because he wants to appease the left for votes. Because that's what Joe Biden does. It's how he's managed to stay in Congress for so long. It's how he managed to stay in there for 50 years. Right when the people start to try to kick Joe Biden to the curb, he'll give the leftists what they want. Just to, give support. He'll say MAGA extremists. That gets more Democrat leftists on there. And so that's what he does. But RFK Jr., I don't agree with him on everything, but the guy has, I don't know. I really don't know. I know he's supported by a lot of Democrats. I know he's supported by Republicans. RFK Jr. is going to get a lot of people that are not involved in politics because, for one, he's a Kennedy, and for two, when you listen to the man speak, he knows how to speak. And he is speaking to the regular people not involved in politics, people not like me and you that listen to this stuff and read about it all the time. But regular people are going to see a Kennedy. They're going to watch one of his speeches. They're going to watch one of his videos, like the one he did at the southern border, where he says the first thing he's going to do is he's going to build a wall. He didn't call it a wall, but he said barriers. And he just happened to point at Donald Trump's wall and say that's exactly what we're going to be building across the entire southern border. So, and they're going to see that, and they're going to be like, yes, this guy seems like a sane, rational man. And look, he's going to get a lot of votes from both sides. A lot of votes on both sides. So I would like to see all those votes going to one ticket. And we can defeat this Democrat Party, this evil, corrupt party, once and for all. I think the Democrat Party of today needs to be defeated so badly. They need to be so demoralized that they will completely abandon their radical campaign. 4 years, 8 years is not that long. We're not going to have the Supreme Court forever. We're not going to have, Donald Trump forever. So the most important thing is when Donald Trump is in there, it is important to start changing to start bringing back our core fundamental values of this country, our core fundamental principles. Like I totally believe allowing religion back in schools. I really do. not private schools, public schools. I think you should allow whichever public school wants to teach about God or wants to read the Bible, it should be settled at their local school board. That is it. Give the power back to the districts. If a district votes to be a Christian public school, if they vote to have a Bible class on, Tuesdays and Thursdays, then let them have it. But the separation of church and state, it was a devastating ruling. Like I said, we are in a spiritual battle. We really are. And the more you remove religion from society, the worse things get. 90% of the radical leftists do not believe in any type of religion. This is why they worship anything. They'll worship a vaccine. They'll worship the earth. They'll worship climate change. They'll worship masks. Whatever it is, they just want to be a part of something. They want to give their life purpose and meaning. Because they don't believe in God, they don't have any values. This is why truth is not a value to the left. This is why they could say men can give birth. They don't believe in fundamental truth. And truth comes with religion. It does. Having faith in a religion is a very powerful thing to have. It brings happiness. Believe it or not, it does. It brings happiness. Because think about somebody that thinks, they're here for a small point of time, and then after they die, there's nothing. That's it. You're going to feel this urge all the time to be a part of something, to want to change the world, to want to make as big of an impact on society as possible, to always want to push your will onto others to change the society. Because you lack faith in a higher power. They don't fear God. They don't. They worship themselves. This is a lot of selfishness. Again, a lot of these core problems that are happening in our society are all solved with religion. They are. The selfishness, the greediness, so much. We can go, idolizing false gods, worshiping climate change. G.K. Chesterton, a man that doesn't believe in God. It's not that he believes in nothing. It's that he'll believe in anything. That's exactly what we're seeing. So, again, you need to get a sane, rational person in the White House. Somebody that, and not only just the president, but you need a Congress too. So it's important for conservatives, Republicans, to get the power in the House and in the Senate as well. Because just having the presidency, the executive branch, that's no bueno. There's not going to be much you can do. But, there's going to be certain things they can do, but it's going to take time, and it's not going to be easy. But if you had the mandate in the House and in the Senate, you can make them very easy. It would take some finagling, some negotiations, but it could be done. Separation of church and state. Voter ID, stuff like this, securing the elections. All that could be done if you have the mandate by the American people. And the mandate by the American people would be giving them the House, giving them the Senate, giving them the White House. That's when things can get done. Donald Trump had that for 2 years, but he was too busy pulling the knives out of his back and getting kneecapped that it was really hard for him to get things done. I'm actually surprised he got everything he did get done. Think of how successful that administration was with him being attacked every single day, with him under investigations, with the impeachments, with the accusations, with the media, lies, obstruction, all of it. For him to get as much as he got done, imagine if he had the mandate with somebody like RFK Jr. or Ron DeSantis that knows the inner workings. Man, you're talking about big, big changes coming and actually maybe bringing this country back to sanity a little bit. But like I said, there needs to be a change in the mindset. It is a lot more than just a presidency. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all for tonight. I hope we put that in order for you. Like I said, let me know what you think about RFK Jr., the Trump ticket. Send me an email, StephenTaurielloShow@gmail.com. Make sure you tune in tomorrow's show. We got a lot of stuff to be talking about. The war over there in Israel is going to be going on for years. It's going to be going on for a long, long time. So I'm sure I'm going to be keeping up to date with that. I'll be informing you on what's going on with that. but there is a lot of stuff happening here that we must get to, that the American people must be informed about, so that people are going into the voting booth not knowing all these things that they should be knowing, things that they didn't know in the 2020 election. I think it's vital for an informed citizenry so that the citizens have proper oversight of the government, where the governed have the oversight over the government. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys had an awesome weekend. Make sure you tune into the next show. Share the show with your friends and family. Follow us on Rumble. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on YouTube. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great week. God bless you. God bless America. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.